In this video, I will be discussing AppArmor along with HTTPs and the used application for ISS for Windows and Apache for Linux, and I hope to discuss and share information about how to make those more secure on your servers. AppArmor is a security module that restricts programs capabilities with per program profiles and is unique specifically to Ubuntu. In the slide you can see I have a code. It starts with sudo AppArmor and with the dash line status. That is a command prompt you'll use to help secure AppArmor. The command will show a list of profiles and if they are currently being enforced or not. Now, the importance is to reduce the damage to a compromised application, and that's why you need to know which of the profiles are being enforced and which ones are just kind of that do not exist, like so that you can create your own AppArmor based on your own personal preference of what you want a program to be able to access. An example would be a program called Evines. It's a user program that is a PDF viewer, and what a profile can do is restrict that PDF viewer to only require resources that a PDF viewer would need rather than having access to the whole like plethora of resources that your server may contain. This is so that if Evines as a program was compromised by an outside malicious source, it would prevent them from accessing any other resources besides the one restricted to the PDF viewer Evines. I can't really stress enough how important making a profile is and learning how to make it. I can't say I am super experienced in making a profile, but I will say to visit the link in the slide as seen in the slide so that you have like a basic understanding to make a profile. And if you want to test this profile and make sure no error occurs when you use it, simply put the profile in a complain mode. Now, complain mode is mostly there to just be like logging any errors that occurred with accessing a resource by an application, versus if you just leave it in the default deny mode, it would just prevent the application from accessing the resource, therefore causing an issue with the application and what it needs. So, and you wouldn't know what that is because it wouldn't be recorded or logged at all. So it's really important if you want to test a profile to set it into complaint mode. IIS stands for Internet Information Service and can only be used in the Windows operating system. One way to secure the HTTPS is to make sure that remote access users do not receive a detailed error report when it occurs. Now, what I mean is that when a remote user accesses HTTPS and there's an error of some sort, it'll leave behind a detailed information that describes the operating system and its version, along with any other crucial information that you as the local user would not want others to have access or know about. This is detrimental in that if I were a malicious user and I saw this information, I could immediately research the flaws of this version of the operating system and exploit it for malicious intent. To resolve this, you would need to go into the IIS manager, and in the error pages tab, you would go in there and change the settings from like allowing detailed errors to only detailed errors for local requests and custom error pages for remote requests. This would allow that you to the local user to be able to see the specific error and what details are in it, but if you were a remote user, you couldn't be able to see these details and be able to use that information. Another way to secure HTTPS is to set cookies to HTTP only. Now, if you look on the slide, you'll see a example of what I mean when you want to set a cookie into a value. This is so that when a malicious user uses a cross-site scripting attack, it prevents the risk of like a cookie containing sensitive information from being disclosed to them. It's done in the header and you would change it there, but overall this is, in the best way I can put it, meant to ensure that any like cookies that would contain sensitive information such as passwords or like user information, you would set their values to HTTP only to basically ensure that uh, those malicious users I mentioned could not access it. Apache can be used on any operating system. However, in the case of this scenario, we are just discussing about how Apache can be secured on Linux slash the Ubuntu operating system. Much like IIS, Apache shares the similar issue where a remote access user can see a detailed HTTPS error. So in order to prevent them from seeing that, you would need to access the command prompt. Once you have the command prompt open, if you look at the example on the left side of the slide, that's the command that you would want to use in order to make sure that the error is only hidden for remote access users. Now, this will give you access to the Apache configuration file, and once you're in the file, you want to change the server's signature to off and the server tokens to prod. And this should essentially make sure that remote access users cannot see the detailed error information. And then the last two lines of commands are to restart the Apache and make sure those changes are put in place. And then another recommendation that I would give is to make sure that Apache is running on a non-privileged account. Now, to do this, you'll want to enter the commands shown in the right side of the slide, and this would create a user with HTTP-web, And by doing this, it'll ensure that only privileged and people with permission can access the Apache function and ensure that it is not compromised. So yeah, that's about it, and this next slide is just the reference I used to gather most of these information. Now, I in general understand HTTPS a bit better and how im a bit more important. Now, I will admit I glossed probably over a lot of key things because with HTTPS you can do a variety of things and it's a lot more than I can list off, but I definitely recommend visiting some of the references I use because a lot of them contain suggestions that I would recommend you look into to see if you think it's required for yourself to run. And then with AppArmor, I definitely hope that you will look into how to create a profile. It's so to ensure that you know how to create the profiles and then be able to secure your own servers with that knowledge. Uh, well, thank you and thanks for watching.